Hi, this is Linda from Great Glass Galore. Today I'm going to teach you how to solder your snowflake. So you're going to need a soldering iron, an iron stand, a sponge, wet sponge. We're going to need 60-40 solder, so 60% tin, 40% lead. You're going to need glass star flux. I like to put my flux in a flux cup holder. They don't make these anymore, so if you have a coffee mug to put that in so it doesn't tip over, that's good. We're going to need double stick tape. You want to, you don't want to get flux fumes, so we have a smoke absorber here with a carbon filter. If you don't have something like this, you want to have a fan pulling the air away from you out a window or be in a well-ventilated area. Okay, so I've got my snowflake pattern here, and I've if you see, it's a paper pattern and it's got some plastic on it, usually a transparency or Duralar or something like that, Mylar to waterproof it. And that's so the pattern doesn't crinkle from either grinding the glass and getting the paper wet or the flux getting the paper wet. But what I'm going to do is double stick tape 3 pieces down. I've already done these 2. These aren't done. But I don't want to double stick tape everything because then it's hard to get the glass off the pattern. So I've done these 2, so I'll show you. I'm going to double stick tape this 3rd one. And you'll need at least 2 pieces of tape, usually 1 on the pattern and then 1 on the snowflake piece. And it's important that when you solder this together that the pattern matches the points going in the outward directions. You're not worried about the side to side, but you want your snowflake to look even going out. Okay, so what we've got here is this solder, like I said, is lead. It doesn't get hot enough to produce lead fumes, but it does get, it can get into your system either through your bloodstream in cuts on your hands or through your mouth if you ingest it. So it's important not to eat, drink, or smoke while you're doing this so you don't stick your hands in your mouth. I usually wear gloves mainly because I usually have cuts in my hands. I do a lot of glass work. Now the flux is a chemical, it's an acid. It's going to cause a chemical reaction between the 2 metals you're trying to connect. So it's going to cause a chemical reaction between the solder and the silvered copper foil so that they connect. So the solder will not stick to the foil without the flux. Now this flux does produce fumes that can cause asthma reactions. It also can cause a rash if you get it on your skin. Generally your hands are calloused enough where it doesn't bother your hands, but if you get it up higher on your arms or you wipe your nose, you'll get a stinging sensation. Or if you spill it on yourself, you'll get a rash. You just want to rinse it off with soap and water right away. I usually will have some 91% alcohol around and a cotton ball. That way I can wipe my arm if I feel like there's some on there, and that alcohol will clean it. So I'm going to put on gloves for when I solder. The other thing you'll want is a soldering iron with a flat, narrow tip. So let's see, I'll get a little pointer here. So if you look at this tip here, this is a flat tip. It's not a pencil tip like my pencil. And this is a 3/16 inch wide tip. So you want 1/8 inch or 3/16 of an inch wide. 1/4 inch is too big. You'll also want an iron where you can control the temperature. This has a controller built in. Sometimes you just add them onto your iron. But you don't usually want to run your iron full bore because it's actually too hot. The solder becomes too liquid. And you can cause thermal shock to the glass and you can actually crack the glass. So in this case, this controller, it's a little knob here. It's hard to see, but there is an indent, that's the arrow, and we've got it set to 410 centigrade. So this is a Hakko, H-A-K-K-O is how it's spelled, and then it's the FX601 iron. And their brands of irons are really great. They're really easy to use. They're heated by a ceramic core heater, which is underneath the metal tip, and it heats nice and evenly. So this is a great iron. So let's go ahead and solder our piece. Again, first I have to add flux to where I'm going to solder. I'm going to start from the center out, and I'm going to start tacking 2 pieces at a time. So I'll tack these 2, and then maybe I'll tack these other 2 on. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to pick up my iron. When I pick up my iron, I wipe it once on each side, and that's so it's nice and shiny. It gets any burning flux residue off of there, or it'll bring anything that's dark on the surface will prevent the solder from sticking. So you just wipe it once on each side. Don't wipe it continuously like this because that will actually cool the iron. And you're not wiping it to get the solder off. It's actually good to have solder built up on there. So what I want to do, I'm going to talk about this. This is the side of the iron and this is the tip of the iron. Okay, so I want to heat both pieces of foil. I need to connect. So if I connect these two, I need to heat this piece of foil and this at the same time. So I need my iron to hit both at the same time. So I'm going to use the side of my iron to use both at the same time. And I'm going to hold my hand over the top so I can lie the iron relatively flat. Okay. So I'm going to take a dot of solder off the end of the solder roll. And if you do that, if your iron's the right temperature, it should hang. So that little piece of solder should hang there. If it falls off and it splatters like a pancake, then it's too hot. Turn your iron down. So again, I'm going to touch both pieces of foil at the same time and lift up. Okay, and I want the solder to be mounded over. That's called a solder bead, and that's going to give it its strength. And right now it's puckered under, so I'm going to keep adding more dots of solder. And it's kind of like I touch straight down and straight up for maybe a second. So if I move on to this square, it's like 1/1000 up. And that's about a second, or 1 Mississippi up. And now it's heated some, so maybe I just count 1 up. I don't even do a second. Okay? And to be strong, I want the solder to go around corners. So I want the solder on this side of the diamond and this side of the diamond. The reason for that is if you just have a straight line of solder, if your solder line is straight, it can bend. Or if it goes around a curve, you can see even with my hands, it's hard to bend. So we're going to add more solder on both sides. Okay, and again, it means I need to hit both pieces of foil on the square and the diamond, so I'm going to come around the side and try and get in there. And use the side of the iron and the tip of the iron to get in there. Now once I do that, maybe again I want my bead, so I'm going to build it up higher. Okay, so now I'll do the other side of the square too. Okay, so again I'm going to build it up around the corners of the square and the diamond. So I want to keep adding solder around the corners, heating both pieces of foil that I'm trying to connect. And then I'm going to get some on the top to pucker up to get that bead mounded up. Okay. Now I'll move on to, I'm sure I flux this, but I'll flux it again. Once the flux dries, it does not work well, and it dries in about 10 minutes. So you can never have too much flux. So again, now I need to hold this piece of glass isn't taped down, so I need to hold it with my finger. And again, I want the points going out. So I'm going to hold this while I touch down. So I've got that tacked. I'll hold this one while I touch down. Okay, and now I'm going to build up that bead. So I'm going to keep adding dots of solder till I build it up. Okay. Now let's add on a glob. Again, I need flux. Now I can't, it's hard for me to use the side of the iron to get in there and hit both pieces of foil, so I need to use the tip, so I need to go in this way. Okay, so again, I'm going to wipe my iron once on each side so it's nice and shiny before I grab a little solder. And I'm going to come in at that angle so the tip heats both pieces of foil on the glob and the square at the same time. And again, I need to go, this is a solder line is too straight, I need to go around the corner of the glob. So I need more solder here and a little more here. Okay, so I'll grab another dot of solder. A little solder there, and then again I want it mounded up. It looks pretty good, but I might just add a little more. And then I'll do the other side again. I'm timing it 1/1000 up, 1/1000 up. Okay, mound it up. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So that's how you work on that snowflake. This one's a little different. I've already taped, let's see, I've got this, got it taped down, but you see that point isn't in the right spot. I got that one taped down too, so let's move it over a little bit. Okay, so this is a little different. Instead of going around this view, we're going around, we're going to need it to attach all of these. So I'll put a little flux on there. So again, it's higher than, the jewel is higher than the glass. I can't go in flat. I got to go in at an angle again. So I'm going to take a dot of solder. Again, I need to touch the foil on the jewel and the foil on the diamond. And then I need to come around the corners. So I need to add solder on this side of the diamond and on this side of the diamond. Side of the diamond, and then again I need to mound it up, so I need to put some on the top. Okay. Now let's add the 3 globs on. 3 globs are a little harder than 1 glob. So I always recommend the globs start off between 2 pieces of glass. You don't want them on a point like this. This actually will tear the foil away from the diamond, and sooner or later these globs will fall off. So they need to go in between 2 pieces of glass. Again, I need to flux all of that. So I'll start by tacking one at a time. So I'll tack this one on. Tack this one on, 1/1000 up. And again, the iron has to get in there and heat both pieces of foil. So once I tack it, now I don't have to hold them. And I just keep adding dots of solder. Now, if you have stained glass experience and you've done a bunch of soldering, you don't have to do this glob method of adding solder, but it's easiest for beginners just to keep adding these globs. And again, I want to come around the corner of the diamond with solder, so I want some more on this side. And then I want to fill in the holes. It's stronger if you fill in these holes. And again, I filled in the hole, but it's puckered under, so I need more solder on top, so we'll add more on top. More dots of solder, 1. So my count, the solder's already heated, so I'm kind of going 1 up. For my timing, 1 up, so straight down and straight up. And again, just keep adding dots till it's puckered over. Okay. If you end up with lumpy solder, what you can do is just leave the tip of your iron in there. So you can start on one edge and slowly work. You want the iron tip to heat all the way to the foil, so it's got to touch the foil. So you can just keep heating back and forth to smooth it out, and then drag your iron off to the side on the glass. Okay, so we'll do one more. Let me get this, let me tack down this diamond first. So again, a dot of solder. Build it up around the corners. Always have the iron tip heating both pieces of foil you want to connect, and then add more on the top to mound the solder up to be strong. Okay, this first glob I'm going to hold. So as I tack them and they're not taped down, I got to get in there with the iron. Okay, and then we'll just start adding dots of solder here. So if you're a stained glass person, you can put the iron in there and just add the solder and mound it up. And then move it around, keep it all liquid and hot. If it starts to pucker underneath, it became too liquid, I need to build it up. But most of you will need to probably do dots of solder. I can pick dots up on the paper. I don't want to pick dots up on the dots of solder on the glass. You can crack the glass. Okay, I want the solder to come out more here. Make sure it comes out around the corner of the glob. A little more in here. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now if you don't have silvered foil. If you only have copper foil and all your pieces look coppery, you need to tin all of them, which means get a light coating of solder on them. And when you do that, if you run at the same temperature, this is 410 centigrade, which is about 600 to 700 degrees, this melts the sticky backing that's holding the foil on, and then your foil will fall off. So you actually want to really lower your iron. I'm going to lower this between 310 and 360 centigrade. And now I'm going to wipe my iron a few times just to cool it off to do this. And again, to get solder to stick to this, I need the flux. So if I don't, I'll show you what happens if you don't add flux. You can see it doesn't stick very well, but you can add, then you can add flux over it. And then it'll start sticking again. So you use the side of your iron just to discolor it. So you saw I took a little dot of solder that goes a long way. Okay, let's see. Now flux the sides. Just a little dot of solder. Kind of doesn't matter what order you do this in, top, side, or bottom. Wipe my iron once on each side so the solder dots stick to the iron. If I put my hand over the top, I can lie the iron flatter, which makes it a little easier to use the side of the iron. When you use the side of the iron, put your hand over the top so the iron's parallel to the table. If you're going to use the tip of the iron, put your hand underneath and hold it upright. Now if you get too much solder, I'll accidentally just put too much solder over an edge here. So if I get a blob of solder over the edge, we'll just add one. There we go. So if you get too much solder like that, you need to lift it up and use the side of your iron and let gravity pull the solder down off of there, and you'll see it'll fall off. Just be careful you don't get that on you. It's really hot. You can burn yourself. Okay. So I think you're ready to go solder. So go ahead and solder your snowflakes, and then we'll come back later and I'll show you how to put your hooks on.